Hello, my name is Steve Tromans and I'm going to be reading from my book, RHYTHMICITY and DELEUZE, which has been shortlisted for the Big Other 2023 award for Nonfiction. My thanks to John Madeira and Big Other. The section I'm going to be reading is from chapter 4, and in chapters 3 to 5, I analyse a series of 7 improvisations that I played on piano, and I use these improvisations as a way to explore and reformulate Gilles Deleuze's 3 syntheses of time, and also his notions of difference and repetition. The section I'm reading is the 3rd musical philosophical analysis, Deleuze's 3rd synthesis of time. The whole point of my book, which is itself a reformulation of my PhD thesis, is that music can be considered a philosophical practice. It can be a way of practicing philosophy, and I use my own compositions and improvisations as a way of exploring certain concepts from Gilles Deleuze's philosophy of time. Right. The 3rd musical philosophical analysis, Deleuze's 3rd synthesis of time. In Deleuze's 3rd synthesis of time, it is the future that drives the endlessly repeating play of differences in themselves. For Deleuze, the echo of the presents, living and passing, engendered by the pure past as ground of their relation, poses a pertinent question, the answer to which always comes from elsewhere. This elsewhere is the time of the future, understood not as the continual passing of presents to come, but rather as that for which the past is brought to pass in order for the novelty to emerge. Even though in the 2nd synthesis the pure past, as repetition itself, is posited as that which causes successive presents to pass via the process of memory, it is only with the 3rd synthesis that we reach a sense of what drives such memory repetition operations and why. In its conceptualization in the 3rd synthesis, the future is that which is repeated, offering, in that repetition, a key to the secret of repetition as a whole. This key is cut from an understanding of time as a pure and empty form. Both pure and empty, the future time of the 3rd synthesis drives the process of a profound novelty. As Galop puts it, the future, thus conceived, becomes a force for change, occasioning the absolutely new in itself. As Deleuze puts it, in reference to his reformulation of Nietzsche's famous concept, the empty purity of this final synthesis is there only for the revelation of the formless in the eternal return, as the eternally returning yet to come. And from my perspective as a creative artist, such temporal emptiness, purity, is essential to the novel potential of that yet to come, lest the future be determined in advance of itself and creative possibility die with it as a result. Through my interest in certain musicians and musical works of the New York School and the American Minimalist movement, I have previously engaged with the notions of how music can evoke a sense of the emptiness of the event considered in its temporal purity, or as an eternal time beyond the time of its articulation. Of the latter, I am thinking in particular of Lamont Young's drone works, such as The Tortoise, His Dreams and Journeys, from 1964 to the present, the second dream of the high-tension line step-down transformer from The Four Dreams of China, 1962, and the various situated instantiations of his concept of the dream house that Young has been almost exclusively concentrating on since the early 1990s. Regarding his lifelong exploration of a time that is only hinted at in the event of performance, Young has talked of his interest in stasis and form which allows time to stand still. Young utilises the extended drone as a means of evoking a sense of this state of timelessness, and conceives of a music that lasts forever and cannot have begun but is taken up again from time to time. In similar fashion, though via different means, I have in mind the rhythmic structures without prescribed content explored in Earl Brown's December 1952 and John Cage's infamous 4 minutes 33 seconds of that same year. The score to the former consists solely of 31 differently sized horizontal and vertical blocks. Brown calls them events, providing performers with a graphic implication of what may transpire during performance. Other than a suggestion that the thickness of each block/event can indicate factors such as relative intensity and/or, where instrumentally applicable, clusters, Brown hands performers majority control of how a performance of December 1952 will both work and sound. As Nyman notes, Brown considered his composition to be devoid of content, since this aspect of its music, i.e. the content, becomes a responsibility of the performer and not the composer. Through its contentless form, then, Brown's December 1952 enables a way of experiencing what earlier I call the emptiness of the event. For its performers, the score presents a way of structuring the event of performance via a conception of time as that which is to be filled, a time that is overfull with possibility. As I indicate in Chapter 2, as early as 1949, Cage was working with a base definition of rhythm as simply a means of structuring time. In an essay from that year, Cage wrote that rhythm in its structural instance is relationships of lengths of time, adding in a footnote that measure should be considered as literally measure, nothing more, thus permitting the existence of any durations, any amplitude relations, meter, accent, any silences. For its part, Cage's 4 minutes 33 seconds offers the blankest of rhythmical structural canvases in respect to what we are to embrace as its musical content in performance, since no actual prescribed sounds are articulated by the performers in any of its 3 movements, each marked tacit. At the same time, it provides the same kind of overfull potential I refer to above in respect of Earl Brown's December 1952, and also that one experiences in the event of improvisation considered in terms of its temporal quality of anything can happen. And while several recorded versions of Cage's work do exist, the most vital rendition is ever the one that is, in fact, happening at the very moment that the listener starts to become aware of the non-existence of silence. A non-existence that is not a negation of music, but an affirmation of its omnipresence. From my own perspective, to sit at the piano with a review to improvise is to garner a sense of this musical omnipresence in the emptiness/overfullness of time, and the experience of improvising the 7 pieces for this project provides no exception. Nothing stretches further in the imagination or is more keenly felt by the improviser than the event of the music to follow. It is a pure event that, even as soon as the first note is articulated and the performance has officially begun, retains its temporal remove from the actual event that unfolds. The purity of the pure event is the purity of the future as empty form, to reiterate Deleuze's term from above. It is never actualized, but it is ultimately involved in the event as actualized. It has no content, but that which is performed cannot be formed without it. The pure event is the ever undetermined future that coexists with the performance as the performance itself is determined. Something is determinable about the future, however, that it is indeterminable. This seeming paradox rests on the notion, as noted above, that the third synthesis of time produces a groundlessness, a universal ungrounding which turns upon itself and causes only the yet to come to return. In the process of this turning/returning, the present and the past no longer operate as the foundation or the ground of time, as they do in the first and second syntheses, respectively. Instead, they become dimensions of the future, the present as agent, the past as condition, but neither return, neither are repeated, only the future returns. For the past to function as a condition of the future indicates a change in kind between its operation in the second and the third syntheses, but not a contradiction. The reader will remember that in the second synthesis, the pure past is repetition itself. In the third synthesis, Deleuze asserts that repetition is a condition of action before it is a concept of reflection. Repetition repeats difference. In so doing, it occasions the novel before the memorial, the act of the new before its reflection into memory. In this manner, on Deleuze's account, the autonomy of the product, the independence of the work is guaranteed and repeated, potentially ad infinitum. And I'll leave it at that point. Rhythmicity and Deleuze, Practices Research in the Musical Philosophy by Steve Tromans.